There are places where the darkness breathes and listens. Places where being alone is the most dangerous thing you can be. Tonight, forget fiction. We're sharing 3 allegedly true encounters that blur the line between reality and nightmare. You'll feel the icy grip of fear in a desolate highway gas station. You'll walk the haunted halls of a skyscraper after everyone else has gone home, and you'll confront a presence that should not exist. These stories will make your heart pound, your skin crawl, and make you double-check the locks. Stick around if you think you can handle it. I never believed in ghosts, a phrase that now echoes with the hollow resonance of a funeral dirge. Before St. Mark's, I lived within the confines of the tangible, a world governed by logic and empirical evidence. The supernatural was a distant, almost comical notion, but the decaying edifice of that abandoned hospital shattered my illusions, revealing a reality where the veil between the living and the spectral was disturbingly thin. The initial nights were a slow, insidious descent into unease. The silence, far from being peaceful, was a suffocating blanket, heavy with unspoken dread. Every creak of the aging structure, every rustle of wind through broken windows, was amplified into a macabre symphony. My flashlight, a feeble beacon, against the encroaching darkness, illuminated the skeletal remains of a once vibrant institution. The peeling paint, the rusted medical equipment, the ghostly outlines of beds where suffering and healing had intertwined, all contributed to an atmosphere of profound melancholy. The subtle anomalies began to manifest, insidious and unsettling. The phantom footsteps, light and hurried, would echo through the empty corridors, a constant, unsettling reminder of unseen presences. I'd whirl around, my heart pounding against my ribs, convinced I was about to confront an intruder, only to find nothing. Just the cold, empty silence punctuated by the incessant drip of water, each drop a morbid countdown. Then, the whispers. They slithered through the air, faint and unintelligible, like the murmurings of a forgotten language. They were just at the edge of perception, teasing me, taunting me with their elusive presence. I'd strained to decipher their meaning, but they remained just beyond my grasp, leaving me with a chilling sense of isolation and creeping dread. The children's ward was the epicenter of the hospital's malevolent energy, a place where the echoes of childhood innocence had been twisted into something profoundly disturbing. The air within those walls was thick with an unseen weight, a palpable sense of sorrow and dread. As I patrolled the ward, I felt an icy premonition, a certainty that I was not alone, that I had walked into a place that was not meant for the living. The shadow that flickered at the edge of my vision was the first tangible sign of the spectral. Children. It was a fleeting glimpse, a momentary distortion of the darkness, but it was enough to send a jolt of terror through my veins. And then, the laughter. High-pitched, childlike, and utterly chilling. It was not the sound of joy, but a twisted, mocking echo of happiness, a sound that resonated with ancient sorrow and a deep, unsettling malice. The locked ward, the source of the laughter, held an almost unbearable sense of dread. As I opened the door, the temperature plummeted, and the air grew heavy with an unseen presence. The teddy bear, its vacant eyes staring into the void, was a symbol of innocence corrupted, a relic of childhood twisted into a harbinger of terror. The whisper, "Play with me," was a chilling invocation, a summons from the spectral children. The lights flickered, casting grotesque shadows that danced and writhed on the walls, revealing the pale, gaunt figures of the children. Their eyes, wide and empty, held an ancient malevolence, a hunger that transcended the boundaries of life and death. The children's spectral forms flickered in and out of existence, their cold, translucent hands reaching out to me, their silent screams echoing through the room. I was trapped, a prisoner in their spectral playground, my body frozen, my mind reeling. The terror was all-encompassing, a suffocating blanket of dread that threatened to consume me. The sudden cessation of the phenomena was almost as terrifying as its manifestation. The silence that followed was heavy with unspoken dread, a pregnant pause before the next onslaught. I stumbled back, my legs weak, my mind shattered, and I ran. I ran as if pursued by the very hounds of hell, my footsteps echoing through the empty halls, a desperate symphony of escape. The outside air, cold and crisp, was a temporary reprieve, a brief respite from the spectral torment. But the echoes of the children's laughter, their silent screams, still resonated in my mind, a chilling reminder of the horrors I had witnessed. I never returned to St. Mark's. The hospital, a place of forgotten pain, had become a permanent fixture in my nightmares. Years later, the memory of St. Mark's still haunts me. When I drive past the abandoned hospital, I see their faces pressed against the windows, their eyes filled with an eternal hunger. I hear their laughter, their whispers, their silent screams, and I know, with a chilling certainty, that they are still there, trapped in the decaying walls of the hospital, forever seeking someone to play with, forever trapped in their eternal, nightmarish game. I've researched the history of St. Mark's, trying to understand the source of the malevolent energy that permeates its walls. I discovered that the hospital had a dark history, marked by tragedy and suffering. There were rumors of unethical experiments, of patients left to die in agony, of children lost to disease and neglect. The hospital, it seemed, was a repository of pain, a place where the echoes of suffering lingered long after the living had departed. The spectral children, I believe, are the remnants of those lost souls, trapped in a perpetual cycle of torment. Their laughter is not a sound of joy, but a twisted echo of their suffering, a desperate plea for release. Their whispers are not invitations to play, but desperate cries for help, for someone to acknowledge their existence, to break the chains that bind them to this desolate place. I've tried to rationalize what I saw, to find a logical explanation for the spectral phenomena, but the truth is, there is no logic in the realm of the supernatural. St. Mark's exists in a liminal space, a place where the boundaries of reality are blurred, where the echoes of the past resonate with a chilling intensity. The lingering dread that permeates St. Mark's is not just a product of my imagination. It is a palpable presence, a dark energy that clings to the walls, a testament to the suffering that occurred within those walls. It is a reminder that some places are forever tainted by the pain of the past, that some doors are best left unopened, and that some nightmares are best left undisturbed. I tell this story not to frighten, but to warn of the darkness that lurks beyond the veil of the living, of the echoes of suffering that can linger for eternity, and to remind you that sometimes the things that we never believed in are the things that we should fear the most. The hum of the fluorescent lights in the Highway Haven Gas and Go wasn't just a sound, it was the pulse of 2 a.m. loneliness. Miles from anywhere that mattered, this gas station, smelling of stale coffee, disinfectant, and desperation, was my little slice of purgatory. 6 months I'd been working the graveyard shift. It wasn't glamorous, but it paid the bills, kept my clunker running, and fueled my instant ramen habit. You learn things on the night shift, mostly how weird people get when the sun goes down. Drunks, truckers running on fumes, families looking haunted under the sodium lights, the occasional conspiracy theorist arguing with the slushy machine. I thought I'd seen it all, developed that perfect 1,000-yard stare that said, "Don't try anything weird." Turns out I hadn't seen anything yet. This night, late October, had teeth. Cold gnawed at the window seals, and the wind outside sounded like something vast and hungry howling across the empty interstate. Inside, the silence between the buzz of the lights and the gurgle of the coffee pot felt heavy, expectant. I was slumped on the stool behind the counter, doom scrolling on my phone, trying to make the clock tick faster. 1:58 a.m. The dead zone. Then, ding dong. The pathetic electronic chime above the door sounded more like a death rattle tonight. I looked up, autopilot plastering a faint smile on my face. It dissolved the second I saw him. He was tall, too tall, almost unnaturally so, his head nearly brushing the low-hanging lights even with a slight hunch. Dark gray hoodie, hood pulled so low his face was just a suggestion of shadow. Baggy jeans, scuffed sneakers. Normal enough, right? Wrong. It was the way he moved. Slow, deliberate, like he was wading through invisible treacle. Each step seemed placed with eerie precision, not shuffling, not striding, just gliding. The door wheezed shut behind him, sealing us in this humming fluorescent box. My hand tightened on my phone, gut screaming. He didn't head for the coffee, didn't browse the snacks. He just lingered. His shadowed head panned slowly across the empty store. Then, with that same unsettling smoothness, he began to wander the aisles, past the chips, the candy bars, his head bowed as if listening to something I couldn't hear. He'd stop, stand perfectly still for a few seconds, then glide on. My eyes darted to the grainy security monitor above the register. On screen, he looked like a ghost, a gray smudge drifting through the garish colors of packaged goods. What was he doing? Not shopping, not casing the joint, not really. It felt purposeful, but for what? He reached the back corner, by the humming drink coolers, their glass doors reflecting his hooded form. He stood there facing the wall of soda and fluorescent light. Then slowly, like a predator sensing its prey, he turned. Not towards me, not towards the exit. He looked straight up into the security camera mounted in the corner. Even through the low-res feed, I felt that gaze. It pierced the screen, pierced the counter, pierced me. He knew I was watching. My heart slammed against my ribs, a frantic bird trapped in a cage. His lips moved. Inside the deep shadow of the hood, I saw the slight movement, the parting. No sound, just silent mouthing. A message only for me, the watcher behind the screen. What was he saying? Then his hand came up. Slowly, pale fingers emerged from the gray sleeve. He didn't wave, didn't threaten. He pointed. One long, steady finger aimed at a specific spot on the monitor, a spot corresponding to the drab, unassuming door tucked away behind my counter, the door to the back room. Storage, supplies, my space. Ice water replaced my blood. Why? How did he even know that door mattered? It was locked, always locked. Nothing back there for anyone but me. A chill, sharp and terrifying traced its way down my spine. My head snapped from the monitor to the actual door, just feet away. Solid, closed, unremarkable. I strained my ears, listening over the frantic pounding in my chest. Silence. I looked back at the monitor. Maybe 2 seconds had passed. He was gone. Vanished. 1 second, the pointing figure. The next, empty aisle, reflecting cooler lights. No way, I breathed. I scrambled off the stool, peering over the counter. Empty store, chips undisturbed, hot, dogs rotating hypnotically. He couldn't have just disappeared. I lunged for the door controls, slamming the lock button. Clunk, sealed in. Or maybe sealed out. Phone in my sweaty hand. 911 typed, thumb hovering. Call, report. What? A ghost? A glitch in the matrix? Knock. Soft. From the backroom door, every nerve ending went supernova. Cold sweat prickled my scalp. No. Building settling. Pipes. Wind. My brain scrambled for logic, but my gut knew better. This was him, or it. I backed away, putting the counter between me and the door. Eyes locked. On the plain wood, knock louder, sharper. No question this time. A demand, my breath caught. Run. Run, you idiot. But my feet were lead, concrete, frozen by a fear so cold, so absolute, it stole the air from my lungs. Knock, knock, knock. Faster, urgent, frantic, tapping out a rhythm of pure dread against the flimsy door. Then, the sound changed. The knocking stopped. The doorknob, cheap, brass-plated, began to rattle. Softly at first, then violently, shaking back and forth, back and forth. The whole door vibrated, groaning in its frame. Like, something was desperately trying to get out, or in, trying to reach me. My heart threatened to punch its way out of my chest. I squeezed my eyes shut. Make it stop. Please, please, make it stop. And just like that, silence. Total. Abrupt. So complete, it roared in my ears. The rattling cut off mid-shake. The only sounds left were the lights hum, the coffee machine's gurgle, and the frantic, deafening thump of my own heart. Time stretched, became meaningless. Was it waiting? Was it gone? The silence felt worse than the noise, charged with unseen menace. Slowly, the paralysis eased, replaced by pure, panicked adrenaline. I couldn't just stand here. Fight or flight? Flight seemed impossible. Fight then. My eyes landed on the emergency toolkit under the sink. Fumbling with the latches, heart hammering, I pulled out the heaviest thing in there. A solid steel wrench. Cold, heavy metal. Not much, but better than nothing. Taking a ragged breath, I forced myself towards the backroom door. Each step felt like wading through mud. I pressed my ear to the wood. Silence. Nothing. No breathing. No shuffling. Empty? Had I cracked? No. The pointing finger, The vanishing, the knocking, the rattling. It was real. Okay. 1, 2, 3. With a choked cry, I twisted the knob. Unlocked. It was unlocked, and flung the door inward, hard. It crashed. Against the inside wall. I stumbled back, wrench raised, eyes wide, scanning the cramped, dusty space. Nothing. Boxes stacked high. Cigarettes, soda syrup, paper towels, shelves of cleaning supplies. My locker in the corner. The single bare bulb overhead casting long, dancing shadows. The faint smell of bleach and cardboard. Empty. Relief hit me like a physical blow, making my knees buckle. It was okay. I was okay. Maybe a prankster who slipped out the fire escape. My brain grasped at straws, trying to stitch reality back together. I stepped cautiously inside, lowering the wrench. My eyes swept the clutter again. Boxes, shelves, dusty concrete floor. Wait, something dark lay crumpled behind a stack of paper. Towel boxes. Out of place. My blood turned to ice again. I nudged the boxes aside with my foot, a dark gray hoodie, identical to the one the figure wore, just lying there, discarded. He was here. How? Where did he go? My eyes darted around the small room, probing the shadows. Nothing. Just the hoodie. Silent. Mocking. Then I saw the wall. The grimy cinder block wall opposite the door. Just above the hoodie. Words. Scrawled. Thick, dark, jagged letters. In something. Viscous, dark reddish brown. Still looking wetly obscene under the bare bulb. It looked horrifyingly like blood. 3 words. See you soon. The wrench slipped from my numb fingers, clattering loudly on the concrete. Terror. Absolute and suffocating. Punched the air from my lungs. This wasn't a prank. This wasn't random. This was a message, a promise, from something that could walk through walls, vanish into thin air, and leave chilling threats behind. I didn't scream. Couldn't. I scrambled backward out of the room, slamming the door shut, fumbling with the useless lock. I didn't wait. Didn't grab my jacket. Didn't clock out. I hit the main door lock, burst out into the biting wind, and ran to my car, keys shaking violently in my hand, jamming them into the ignition. The engine caught, roared defiance into the night. I slammed it into drive and peeled out of that parking lot, tires screaming on the asphalt. Didn't look back, just drove. Away. Fast. 50 miles down the highway. As the sky began to bruise with the first hint of dawn, I pulled over and called my boss. I quit. I choked out. No explanation. He could keep the paycheck. No job was worth that. I moved. 2 states away. Got a boring office job. Daytime only. But the fear? That moved with me. It's a quiet roommate now, mostly staying in the background. But sometimes, late at night, when the wind sounds just right, or a shadow flickers in the corner of my eye, it steps forward. The memory surfaces. The gliding figure. The silent mouthing. The rattling knob. The crumpled hoodie. And those blood-red words on the wall. See you soon. Desperation smells like stale coffee and industrial-strength ammonia. At least it did for me back then. Rent was overdue, my fridge echoed, and my job prospects looked bleaker than a rainy Monday morning. So, when the ad for a night cleaner at the downtown Apex Tower popped up, I jumped on it like a starving wolf. Midnight to 6 a.m. Minimal human interaction. Decent pay. Sounded like heaven, or the closest I could afford. The idea of having an entire silent skyscraper practically to myself, just me and my thoughts, well, maybe it wouldn't be so bad. Maybe the solitude would be a relief. I've never been great with crowds or small talk or, frankly, most people. Give me quiet. Give me space. Apex Tower promised both. Or so I mistakenly, tragically believed. The first few nights were exactly what I'd signed up for. Eerily quiet, almost unnervingly so. The daytime hustle of brokers, lawyers, and tech types evaporated, leaving behind a hollow shell. Just me. The rhythmic slosh of my mop in the bucket. The squeak of my cart's wheels echoing down vast, carpeted hallways, and the low hum of dormant computers. Apex Tower after midnight was a different beast. All polished marble floors reflecting. Phantom lights, acres of empty desks standing like tombstones in the gloom. The occasional startling click of the heating system kicking in. I'd punch in, grab my cart from the basement storage, and methodically work my way up, floor by empty floor. Polish the lobby, vacuum the executive suites on 15, scrub the bathrooms on 10, empty bins overflowing with discarded ambition on 5. It was monotonous, sure, but it was blessedly simple. For a week, the only company I had was my own reflection staring back from the darkened windows, the city lights glittering like fallen stars far below. I started to relax, started to think maybe I'd landed on my feet. Then, things started to get weird. It began subtly, almost dismissively. With the elevator, I'd be mopping the pristine lobby floor, miles from the elevator bank, and suddenly hear it. Ding. The soft, polite chime announcing an arrival, followed by the hydraulic sigh of the door sliding open, then closing again moments later. The first time, I figured someone forgot something, maybe late working security doing rounds, but nobody ever emerged. I'd checked the indicator panel. No floors lit up. It happened again the next night, while I was emptying bins on the 8th floor. Ding. Doors open, doors close. Down the hall, utterly silent otherwise. Okay, faulty sensor, I told myself. Big building, old wiring, bound to be glitches. Happens all the time. Nothing to worry about. But it kept happening. Randomly. Persistently. Sometimes it would open on the floor I wasn't on. Sometimes, more unnervingly, it would open right there on my floor, the doors gaping into an empty shaft of darkness for a few seconds before sighing shut again, as if offering an invisible passenger a ride. It felt less like a malfunction and more like teasing, like a game someone unseen was playing. Then came the footsteps. This wasn't just the building settling. I know those sounds, the groans, the creaks, the pops. This was different. It started on the upper floors, usually when I was working my way down in the dead hours around 3 a.m. A soft shuffling sound, like someone dragging their feet in worn-out slippers across the expensive Berber carpet upstairs. Shuffle, pause, shuffle. Slow, hesitant, but undeniably footsteps. The first time I heard it, I froze. Mop handle clutched tight. Security? I called out, my voice sounding small and thin in the cavernous space. Hello? Security? Only silence answered, amplifying the thumping in my own chest. I'd grab my master key card, take the stairs. The elevator suddenly felt deeply uninviting, and check the floor above. Nothing. Offices locked tight, chairs pushed in, monitors dark. Utter stillness. I started checking the security camera feeds accessible on the guard's desk monitor in the lobby. The guard only stayed till 1 a.m. I'd rewind the footage for the times I heard the shuffling. Static images. Empty hallways stared back at me, mocking my growing unease. The cameras saw nothing, but I heard it. And more than that, I started to feel it. It began as a prickle on the back of my neck. The kind of feeling you get when you just know someone's looking at you, even if you can't see them. It would happen most often when I was working in the corners of large office floors, my back to the long, dark expanse. I'd feel this intense pressure, this awareness of being observed. I'd whip around, heart pounding, expecting to see someone standing there among the cubicles. Always nothing. Just rows of empty chairs and the city lights reflected in the black windows, looking like a million unblinking eyes. The silence wasn't peaceful anymore, it was heavy, watchful. The solitude I craved now felt like isolation, like being trapped. The breaking point came about 3 weeks in. I was cleaning the third-floor men's restroom, a small sterile space with harsh fluorescent lighting and gleaming chrome fixtures. It was around 4:30 a.m., the darkest, quietest hour before the city began to stir. I was scrubbing the sinks, the smell of bleach sharp in my nostrils, lost in the repetitive motion. Suddenly, the lights flickered, once, twice. Then they buzzed erratically, casting strobing shadows across the pristine tile. The air, usually kept at a bland, stable temperature by the building's climate control, dropped. Not just cool, but icy. Cold enough that my breath plumed faintly in front of my face. Goosebumps erupted along my arms, tightening my skin. The familiar hum of the ventilation system seemed to die, plunging the small room into an unnatural, suffocating silence. And then I heard it. Not footsteps this time, not a bump or a creak, a whisper. So faint it was almost below the threshold of hearing, yet terrifyingly clear. Directly behind my right ear. A dry, papery sound like dead leaves skittering across pavement. Cold, ancient, malignant. It spoke a Single, unintelligible syllable, a sibilant hiss that slithered straight into my brainstem. I yelped, spinning around so fast I nearly slipped on the wet floor, sloshing gray water from my bucket. My heart hammered against my ribs like a trapped bird desperate for escape. Nobody was there. Of course, nobody was there. Just the row of stalls, the gleaming urinals, the closed door leading back to the hallway. My reflection stared back from the large mirror above the sinks, wide-eyed, pale, terrified. But behind my reflection, in the mirror's surface, for just a fraction of a second, I saw it. Movement. In the reflection of the open doorway behind me. Not a person. Not clearly. Just a shape. Tall, impossibly thin, darker than the hallway shadows it seemed to be woven from. It wasn't distinct, more like a distortion in the air, a smudge of pure blackness against the gloom. And it was standing, right there, watching. I didn't scream. I couldn't. My breath locked in my chest. The image vanished as quickly as it appeared, leaving only the empty hallway reflected behind my own terrified face. But I'd seen it. I knew I'd seen it. That was it. Rationalization be damned. Faulty sensors, settling noises, overactive imagination. None of it mattered now. Every instinct shrieked, "Danger! Get out!" I bolted, dropped the mop with a clatter, stumbled out of the restroom, not caring about the trail of wet footprints I left behind. My only thought was escape. Lobby, exit, street, sanity. I half ran, half stumbled down the corridor towards the stairwell, fumbling for my keys, my hands shaking uncontrollably. The elevator? Not a chance in hell. But as I rounded the corner towards the emergency exit, heart pounding, breath coming in ragged gasps, something caught my eye. Something wrong. A door, tucked away in a shallow alcove between the stairwell entrance and a bank of unused offices. A plain, featureless metal door, painted the same bland beige as the walls. No handle, just a small keyhole. No sign, no label, and I had never seen it before. I walked this hallway every single night. I knew every scuff mark on the baseboards, every water stain on the ceiling tiles. This door, it wasn't here yesterday, or the day before. It simply hadn't existed. Fear screamed at me to keep running, to ignore it, to get out of this cursed building. But something else, a cold, morbid curiosity mixed with an inexplicable feeling of being pulled, rooted me to the spot. It felt like the building itself wanted me to see this, wanted me to open it. My shaking hand, acting almost of its own volition, reached out, inserted the master key into the lock. It turned with a well-oiled, silent click. My stomach plummeted. What was I doing? This was insane, but I couldn't stop myself. I pushed the door inward. It opened into darkness. Not a room, but a cramped, narrow space. A closet, deeper than it looked from the outside. The air that flowed out was thick with the smell of dust, decaying paper, and something else. Something faintly metallic and unpleasant, like old pennies and dried blood. I fumbled for the light switch just inside the frame. A single bare bulb flickered hesitantly to life overhead, casting a weak, yellow glow. My breath hitched. My stomach clenched violently. The walls. All three walls inside the cramped space were completely covered, floor to ceiling, with yellowed, brittle newspaper clippings. Dozens of them, pinned haphazardly, overlapping, edges curling. And every single headline screamed variations of the same horrifying theme. Local man missing. Janitor vanishes without trace. Police baffled by disappearance. My eyes scanned the articles, drawn by a sickening fascination. Dates spanning decades. 1975, 1982, 1996, 2008. Even one from just 3 years ago. Different eras, different faces in the grainy black and white photos accompanying each story. But the narrative was chillingly consistent. The missing person was always male, always worked the night shift as a cleaner or janitor, always disappeared from this very building, Apex Tower, leaving behind only confusion and unanswered questions. Their photos stared back at me from the wall. Young men, middle-aged men, older men, frozen smiles, weary eyes, all trapped in time by cheap newsprint. Their eyes, they looked dark, empty, haunted, like they knew their fate even as the photo was taken. My blood ran cold. This wasn't just a closet. This was a memorial, a trophy room, a warning. Then, the whisper came again. Not from behind me. This time, not from the hallway. It was inside the closet with me. So close the icy breath of it ghosted against the skin of my neck, raising every hair on my body. The same dry, ancient, sibilant voice, clearer now, horrifyingly distinct. "You're next." Pure, undiluted terror exploded in my chest. This wasn't a ghost story. This was an active threat. The building wasn't just haunted, it was hungry. And I was its latest target. I didn't think. I reacted. I slammed the door shut, the click of the latch echoing in the sudden darkness of the hallway. I didn't bother locking it. What good would it do? I turned and ran. Not towards the stairs, this time, but blindly down the corridor towards the distant glow of the emergency exit sign at the far end. I hit the crash bar and burst out onto the fire escape, the cold metal biting through my thin uniform pants. The city air, usually thick with exhaust fumes, felt impossibly fresh, clean. I scrambled down the rattling metal stairs, not stopping until my feet hit the grimy pavement of the alleyway below. I didn't look back up at the imposing black tower, looming over me. I ran out of the alley, onto the street where the first hints of dawn were painting the sky gray. I didn't clock out. I didn't get my bag from the basement. I just ran, melting into the anonymity of the waking city, leaving Apex Tower and its dark secrets behind me. I never went back, obviously. Called the contracting company from a payphone. Yes, they still existed then, and quit. No explanation offered, none requested. I moved out of my apartment the next week, needing a fresh start, needing distance. But you don't just walk away from something like that. Not really. I still have nightmares. Vivid ones. Sometimes it's the elevator doors opening onto impossible darkness. Sometimes it's the shuffling footsteps, always just out of sight. Most often, though, it's the closet. The wall of forgotten faces staring back at me, their eyes full of silent warning. And that whisper, cold and inevitable, echoing in the dark. "You're next." I work days now. Always days. In brightly lit places, preferably with lots of people around. But even then, sometimes when the lights flicker, or a cold draft touches my neck, I freeze. And I wonder about that door. Is it still there? Waiting? And I wonder about the thing that whispered in the dark. The thing that collects night cleaners. Is it still watching? Still waiting? The question hangs there, unanswered, a permanent resident in the quiet corners of my mind.